I had 9 o'clock.
So how would you do that?
Good morning, everyone. Stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
First on the agenda, we'll have the agenda approval.
Mr. Chair, I have one item to add that's late. It's on the electronic agenda, and the modification was sent out on Friday, but I wanted to bring it to attention. That's the implementation of Microsoft 365, which is under the administrators section. I will also note that I got several contracts for social services that came in Friday and yesterday. And I'm not bringing them to you because there's a lot of paperwork with them. They're supposed to have been or supposed to be done by February 28th, but March 1st is going to have to be early enough. So they were just complicated enough that they're regular recurring things. There's nothing really significant, but there's so many pages, I didn't want you to have to look at them today and determine and decide. So they'll be on the agenda for March 1st, and I hope that's not a problem. The one that had a deadline said it had to be fully executed by March 31st, and our deadline was February 28th. But the state's just going to have to work with us on that one day.
Thank you. So we'll get a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next, we'll have public input. Is there any public input this morning? Doesn't appear to be, so we'll move on to number 3, public comment on body-worn camera policy. Is there any public comment on the body-worn camera policy? There again, doesn't appear to be, so we will move on to number 3A, the body-worn camera policy. Is there anybody here to represent that, Jeff? or-
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we really, you already approved the purchase of the body-worn cameras
Okay.
pending the holding of this public input and the public input process. So I don't know that there's any action to be taken other than to note that in the minutes that we did in fact have, go through the process. We posted it on the website, we posted it in the paper, and we had this public input opportunity at the board.
Okay.
So I think it was well over a month, it was in December that you approved the purchase of the body-worn cameras. We just couldn't implement that program until this policy had been made publicly available and up for comment.
Okay. And I read through the policy. I didn't have any issues with it. I don't know if anybody
I
else
didn't
did.
either.
Need to see, I just make one comment since this is still public
Sure.
comment, and as a citizen, I think it's a great item to have to protect the officers and any residents, non-residents interaction. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Money well spent.
And as you said, we don't need to make a motion.
We do not need to take action. The agenda item is there simply so that I could attach the policy to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. On to the consent agenda. I noticed under 4J, under extension, that Teresa Ohm for extension District 5 was not on there. And I see Teresa's term for District 5 runs until the 12/31 of 2023. So Jeff, you say we should pull that and add that later, or?
Yeah, I would pull that item to make from the consent agenda,
Okay.
approve the consent agenda, and then make the correction to that item and approve that item.
Okay, so I'll pull 4J from the consent agenda. Is there anything else?
I'll move to approve with the change.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So So then I would immediately take up the item of 4J and just offer the corrections
Okay.
to that.
And then I guess as I stated earlier, I noticed under the 4J extension, Teresa Ohm, OHM for District 5, was missing or omitted. In my paperwork here, her term runs until December 31st of 2023. Do we need a motion on this then? A motion to have Teresa be the District 5 representative on extension?
How about, could you combine the
Just-
motion to approve this
just a-
with the correction?
Yep, just a motion to approve these two lists with the correction.
Okay. So can I get a motion to approve?
I will make that.
Thank you, Shar. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 5A, county employee recognition.
Put that away.
For the sheriff's office, we have Alexander S. Anderson, deputy sheriff, is recognized for 4+ years of service from January 3rd of 2017 to February 11th of 2022. And we have Mason Donahue, dispatcher jailer, transferred from his full-time position to part-time on February 11th, 2022. Thank you, Alexander and Mason. I don't know if either of them are here. Okay. We'll move on to 6A, natural resource management.
I think we looked in here for, human resource.
Good
Yes,
morning,
it's-
Commissioners.
Morning.
The first item on the agenda is the approval of a quote for site preparation for our tree planting. We have 209 acres of sites planned for tree planting in the future. We have one quote from Future Forests, Inc. out of Ascov, Minnesota. For trenching, it's $92 an acre, broadcast spray, $79 an acre, and then they also have to bid the chemicals. They have Tordon K at $87 a gallon, and Liberate, which is a surfactant, at $35 per gallon. We are recommending the only quote, since they are the only outfit in the entire Lake States region that does this kind of stuff, so.
And it looks like we're doing 209 acres.
Correct.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Tom. Second? I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carried.
Next item on the agenda is for spring tree seedling planting labor. We received two quotes for planting the approximately 78,000 seedlings that we have scheduled for this spring. Superior Forestry, Inc. out of Russellville, Arkansas is the low quote at $88.50 per thousand, with an approximate contract value of $6,929.55. And we are recommending Superior Forestry as the to be approved.
See, there's quite a difference in the quotes.
Yes, there is.
Wow, why is that? I mean, that's really big.
I'm guessing it's probably from where they get their labor.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the local.
Thank you, Shar.
I'll second. I'll second.
Dan, excuse me. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Next item on the agenda is the Mississippi River Headwaters Watershed 1 Plan implementation. I believe we have somebody here to talk about that.
And we do have Zach on Zoom if the need arises.
Good morning.
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 Now, we had discussed this at our work session last week. Of course, Tom, you weren't here, but I don't know if you have any questions or,
Is the Beltrami SWCD gonna be the fiscal agent?
Yes.
Okay, that's the only thing I was wondering about, because I didn't see it in the resolution. Okay,
And Zach will continue heading that up.
okay.
He's been doing a great job, I think.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dan. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you again for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last item on the agenda is a quote for some Phase 1 archaeological survey work. Again, in the process of our due diligence on setting up timber sales, we do check with the Office of the State Archaeologist for potential sites on our timber sales, and we did have one tract that came up with a positive hit on it. And so we send those down to SHPO and the Office of the State Archaeologist, and they come back whether they think we need to have a Phase 1 survey on that. On this particular one, they felt that there was enough evidence out there that we should have a Phase 1 survey out there. Basically, what they do is they take transects across the entire timber sale and do shovel tests and sift the dirt out to see if there's any bones or pottery fragments or whatever in that area. And if they find something that they consider that's, that they need to have, more, take a deeper look at, then they recommend a Phase 2, which they would have to come back and recommend, a little more in-depth survey. But if not, which is typically the case, then we just, they give us the okay, and we move on.
So this is all done prior to putting this parcel up?
Actually, this is part of the approval process that we go through, so this tract has actually already been sold.
Okay, that's what I thought when I read it, okay.
But it's a winter sale, so we have all this coming summer to
Okay,
get this done, so.
okay.
The only thing, Chip, that I noticed in the scope of work, Phase 1, the paperwork here, under number 2, project objectives, they have it LaSalle Township in Hubbard County in there. It should be Lake Hattie Township.
Yep.
That first paragraph.
Otherwise, I didn't notice anything else jump out at me.
You're so good at all those little details.
Thank you.
It's actually wrong in the heading, too.
I missed that there then. There, sure enough, there it is in bold print and everything.
Thanks for calling that out.
Corrections are made, I'm fine with it.
I'll move to approve with the correction.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
That is all I have.
Thank you, Chip.
Thank you.
Looks like you're up, Josh.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I have an item today on the agenda. It's for a resolution of support for the solid waste management taxes collected by the state of Minnesota to fund solid waste and recycling programs as intended. So kind of a little bit of background is that this, so we receive score payments, which it helps to fund part of our recycling program. And then historically, those payments are, need to be used for recycling because the state requires us to recycle certain things, and it helps to offset those costs. So looking into I think the second page that I attached, you can see like there's a graph there that shows how flat score funding has been historically over the last, 30 years now. Whereas all this funding comes from is from the solid waste management tax, which is a tax pretty much put on any type of solid waste service, whether it's hauling, disposing of garbage. And you can see where the solid waste management taxes, they've collected a lot more money over the years. The funding that the counties get has remained flat. So Clay County sent out a resolution, and couple of our counties in our 5-county group are just sending a resolution of support to hopefully get this changed so we can get more money to put into our recycling programs. And I attached, quite a bit of information in the background, and then I attached a resolution there too. So if you have any other questions, I can answer that, but basically it's like a motion of support to attach Hubbard County onto letters that go out to the legislature and a couple bills that are out there, and hopefully make a difference this year, so.
And I'll second, and Mr. Chair, I believe this has been taken up at MRC, and I believe this was who's ever on solid waste at AMC, isn't that one of the pieces that was moved?
I think it's a priority, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, it seems common sense.
yeah.
You know, all that money's been going to the general fund.
Yeah, guess where it's spent?
Yeah, I think is it 30%, I think, of
That's what
solid
it
waste
said, yeah.
management taxes go to MPCA or county programs, and the rest goes to the general fund, so.
Okay. Motion and second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
Environmental Services. Good morning, Eric.
Takes a long time to load 100 pages.
Yeah.
Two items for the board this morning. The first is a preliminary plat application for 3 lots to be created on the south end of Spider Lake. The development is by the Potato Lake Land Company. It went to the Planning Commission at the January meeting, and they recommended approval of the plat with a note that in regard to the public comment that was received concerning Glacial Ridge Trail, which is a private road that runs along the east side of the plat, the landowner of the plat property does not have legal access to that road, and so the concerns that were raised about a prior owner punching in and access off of that drive to a storage facility that he had really didn't cause a concern for the commission because it was more of a private trespass issue, if anything, and they left that matter to be dealt with by the affected landowners if and when it would become an issue. The developer indicated that he understood that he didn't have access and that at some future point in time he might pursue that, but that wasn't something that he was presenting in the application. So the 3 lots fully comply with the ordinance. They exceed the minimum lot sizes to varying degrees, and fairly straightforward plat application. So the recommendation of the commission and staff would be to approve the preliminary plat.
So Eric, prior to this, I was on the township board, and we had people come off and that had that moved into plats from cities and expected the township to take over the road. And one thing I noticed as I read through this material, it says in there that this road can never be taken over by the township. So I'm assuming the parties interested are all comfortable with that language?
They are. It's kind of an interesting story on the township involvement in the process because Mantrap Township has its own ordinance. Their statute requires that we have evidence of their approval of the plat prior to the county taking the application up. And their land use ordinance says that you must have a developer's agreement for the road. And then it says it goes through a public hearing process, the same as a conditional use permit. So when I first got the results of that from the township, they had a motion that said, approve, we're okay with this being a private road, but the developer's agreement said must be a public road, and then laid out specifications. So I had to follow up with the township zoning administrator and ask the question, we need clarity here. And so they had their township attorney look into it and come up with a typical of attorney's interpretation that was creative to find a way through and pass this. And so they revised the developer's agreement and then had the town board approve the amended agreement to say that it will be a private road only, and everyone understands that. And then if and when the parties that purchase the lots would ever desire it to be a township road, it spells out what the specifications are, so everybody knows up front what would be involved. When I ran that by Jonathan, he wasn't so certain that they could specifically say absolutely never can you ever petition the township for this to be a public road, so that remains to be seen whether they can hold that or not. But that's kind of a sidebar issue in that it's a private road. We don't require anything to be constructed per our ordinance, so it fully meets our criteria. But yeah, that was an interesting delay in the development of this one.
I have trouble reading plats, so can you tell me, because of that road issue, where's this road gonna be entered? So it doesn't access the other, the
It'll
Glaze
come
Road?
off the south on Grand Pines Drive. I'll get this open. So there's Grand Pines Drive. County 40 is just down here, and then it kind of tees in somewhere over here is how you get up on Grand Pines Drive, and then they'll come in on this.
Okay, so they'll just construct a whole,
Well, that was part of one of the other issues with this. The applicant created these 3 lots through administrative subdivision this summer. And so there's a 33-foot easement for access that was provided along the east side of those lots, and the road was already constructed. The road, I believe, was centered on the east property line with the anticipation that they then would provide another 33 feet on the other side to satisfy the ordinance's 66-foot right-of-way requirement. But they didn't account for the fact that the ordinance says in a private road situation, it must be an outlot to the plat, and therefore it must be totally within the plat itself. You can't have part of the right-of-way servicing the plat be outside the plat, so that led to the right-of-way being expanded, so it's actually 99 feet wide. And the physical road runs along the east side of the east side of these 3 lots, and the west side of the outlot is shown on the plat. So a little homework on the front end would have probably made that a little cleaner, but
Are they gonna be moving the road then? To totally be on
not that I've heard.
At least at this time?
I believe there was work that was gonna happen to bring these 3 property owners into a road agreement that would also affect the 3 platted lot owners, so it would lay out how the 6 of them are gonna deal with the road maintenance that's necessary.
Approximately how long is that road there in the plot?
$500, depends on where you draw or cut it off in the cul-de-sac, 500 feet.
Less than 1/8 of a mile. Okay. Any other questions? Need a motion? Would anybody like to make one?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve as recommended by the planning commission.
I'll second, since my area
Dan? Any further discussion?
killed.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. And the second and last item I have for the board this morning would be renewal of our annual contract with our septic inspector, which is Al Winterberger with Winterberger Inspections. The document content is unchanged from prior years. It's been reviewed and approved as to form by the county attorney. The sole proposed adjustment would be to section 2.1, page 3, which involves the cost and delivery of the purchased services, where there are some proposed adjustments to the rates to deal with inflation, increased fuel costs that the contractor is experiencing, and an adjustment of this nature has not been made to those amounts for the last 2 years. So it's been since 2019 that the contract hasn't been adjusted. So the adjustments are well within what we'll be able to cover in light of our recent fee schedule adjustments that we made. And I've got details on that if the board is interested.
I'll move to approve the contract.
Dave,
I'll second.
Shar, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Chair, I just have a quick question for Eric. So, of course, there's not a lot of properties selling right now, I guess, because there aren't a lot listed, but have you seen any consequences with having to empty the tank, in the winter?
None that I've heard of yet for specific examples. There's a fair amount of grumbling and people being unhappy about having to do that, but I haven't heard of any of the anticipated problems yet. So
Okay.
they may be occurring, but we just haven't seen any documented cases yet. But we did have a large property that was looking to do a variance to clean up some things, and because of the scope of the property and the number of systems they had and the expense related to having compliance inspections done, that they've opted not to pursue a variance because of the burdensome cost associated with compliance inspections due largely to now having to get the tanks pumped. So it is driving decisions, unfortunately.
That's it. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Eric.
Human Resources.
I'm her backup today.
My bodyguard.
Guido.
Morning, Chair, members of the board. The agenda item that Sheriff has before you today is a request to increase the complement of full-time dispatcher jailers within his department. The Hubbard County Jail is staffed to house 60 inmates. The average daily inmate population in August was 50.62, and in February to date is 73.17. On Monday, February 7th, there was a record number of inmates totaling 87. The cost to house 10 inmates in other jails is $219,000 a year, which would also be higher due to unknown transport costs to get the inmates there. Due to the increased inmate population and housing costs in other jails, there is a need to increase staffing. Currently, the full-time complement of the dispatcher jailer position is 20. The cost for 4 additional full-time dispatcher jailer positions would be $276,710 a year, which includes benefits. The sheriff is here today to authorize to increase the complement to 24 full-time dispatcher jailer positions from 20 full-time positions to be paid from incurred expense reimbursements.
The additional 4 would give each team 1 additional corrections officer. We're currently staffed to house 60 inmates. And I think it might have been at a department head meeting, but I'm having to fill in to bring in, additional people. I'm bringing deputy sheriffs in to work in the jail. And that can only go so long. I've pulled our STS crew leader off the crew to work in the jail because he has jail experience. And we're backed into a corner here, at no fault of our own, but the jail is getting full and it's getting busier And there's a safety issue for the staff and the inmates if we don't have adequate staffing, back there. The funding for this, I would suggest if the board approves this, we could take the reimbursement that we're getting from Enbridge, which is gonna be roughly $800,000, and that would fund this for a couple of years. At least for this year until it can be budgeted, for the following year, however we wanna look at it. But, again, I don't wanna have to start taking our inmates to other counties. That is gonna be very expensive, and it's gonna end up being more economical to hire our own staff.
So Corey?
Yes.
What's the increase from
I'll tell you-
currently?
Well, it's a lot of drug DUIs is what it is. There's been a lot of people that have been arrested that are, that have a pretty extensive criminal history. So instead of them being released on their own or having a low bail, they're being held. And, additional enforcement efforts, on the traffic end, is bringing these people, it's a public safety thing for sure, getting these people off the streets, driving high on meth. I mean, that's something that, it's good they're getting arrested, there's no doubt. But I don't see this changing. I don't see our numbers going down. And we hit another record after this one. We actually had 87 again, in the jail, here just the other day again. And, once we hit, actually, I think once we hit 90, I believe, we have to notify the DOC. And, I would hate for them to come in to all of a sudden say, no, 60 is your max, or whatever it's gonna be. So, this is something that would, fix this. It would.
I have one question. If the numbers did go down, you said you don't expect them to, and they probably won't, but if they did, does the labor contract allow for potential laying off if we have too much staff?
Well, layoffs wouldn't be subject to labor contracts. I think you can lay people off, no matter what. It's not addressed in the labor contract, no. So it would be, it's up to us to, we have that discretion.
But that, okay, you can lay them off if
Sure.
for some reason you didn't need them
Yep.
in the future, which would be nice, but
Yep.
like I said, maybe not, it probably won't.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And I didn't bring a contract with me. Typically, layoff procedures are laid out in a union contract, but whatnot, yeah, we would follow whichever procedures. There's either in the contract or in personnel policy to follow procedures if we would ever incur that.
Yeah, the only thing that I think it may address would maybe be seniority, where you'd have to lay off the least senior people, but it doesn't say that you can't do layoffs at all
Yeah.
whatsoever. It does not say that, so.
So Corey, when you, after a decision is made, the possibility of hiring 4 new individuals, would you be putting some little sub-clause in there being post-certified, or so you can use them somewhere else, Corey?
I don't know.
Corey?
I doubt that.
That'd be a good
That-
thing, Corey.
I
That
think-
creates a significant challenge with our classification system. If you bring somebody in and require them to have the credentials for another position, we have to compensate them at that level.
I wouldn't say you would just have that little sidebar.
I tell you what, that, it would certainly be a good,
It'd be good.
universal way to have an employee, just like a dual-trained
Yeah.
corrections officer who can also dispatch and vice versa. That is a very valuable employee that can be, dual purpose. And I don't disagree with you. And I certainly wouldn't be, I would welcome hiring somebody who's a licensed officer back in the jail, so you could, but I don't know that we would. We already have a job description for the position. I don't know that we can really change that, but I would welcome licensed officers applying. I would. That would be
Makes sense financially all the way around?
Yep. And one thing I would like, Brent, he's the assistant jail administrator, if he could maybe touch on the safety issues that we have. Brent has been a CO, he's been a sergeant, he's been in the jail program, and now he's the assistant jail administrator. And when you look at the safety aspect, that's a huge thing.
Yes, when we, like just the other day, we had, almost all the staff has to go down to a pod because our pods are quite full. So it takes almost everybody down to the pod to deal with the situation that's at hand, and then it leaves less staff for other situations that could occur while we're, and it's the safety of the inmates. We have inmates that have mental health issues, and they need to be watched more closely. They're on 15-minute checks. At one point, we had 5 on 15-minute checks at one time. So that takes a staff just to stay in the back where those inmates are the entire time, just to do those checks and to make sure those people aren't hurting themselves. So it's big for the inmates. It's big that we keep them safe,
And they
which could cost the county a lot if we don't keep them safe.
Yeah, liability wise, and
Yes.
you can't always count on, deputies being close or available to help out, when all hell breaks loose. You can't. I mean, you have to have your, adequate staffing back there to be able to handle any situation that comes up, and, it's tough. I mean, in adding another position to that team, it makes a big difference. It really does. One, it's gonna allow us to function.
Now, you talk about your staff to house 60 inmates, and we have 87 at one point. There must be room for 87?
Oh, yeah.
Barely. Yep. We're busting at the seams. I believe our magic number, correct me if I'm wrong, is about 90. Even though we have 116 beds, our operational capacity is right at that 90 mark. 92, I believe. So,
And that's, because a lot of the beds that we have, like for special management inmates, they can't be double bunked. They can't be housed with somebody else. They have to be by themselves. So those extra beds are because they have to be by themselves.
yep.
So if we hire these 4, do you still have enough headroom to hit capacity and not hire more? In other words, if you hire these 4, will you have enough staffing to handle 92?
Yes.
One other question and a comment. So do you think this trend's gonna continue for a while?
I do. I don't see it changing. I don't. With the traffic enforcement that is happening, with the type of people that are getting arrested, yeah, I think it's gonna continue. There's no doubt about it. You look back, at it, starting back in the summer, and you can just see the trends. I mean, back in, August, our average daily population was 50, 49 in September, 49 October, 61 in November, 71 December, 70 in January, 73 in February. It's just steadily, going up and up and up, and, yeah, it's, even, I mean, we still may have to, I mean, if we end up getting more and more and more, we may inevitably have to house some out, but if we have to house out 10 versus 30, that's a huge difference,
Yeah.
you know.
I don't see where you have much options. And then my other comment is regarding the budgeting part of it. Using Enbridge reimbursement funds, the problem is that money's already been spoken for with labor and other costs in dealing with the pipeline. So we need to account for this in the 2023 budget. Because we might have the cash flow to do it now, but if we don't account for it in the new budget, that's a $219,000 hit.
Right.
Following year.
Yeah, as a matter of administrative practice, if these positions are approved and we're working on the 2023 budget, Gina's staff would be putting the budget together based on the new number of positions.
Yes.
So, yeah, cash flow versus operating budget are two different items, and that was a point I was gonna make, that we'll have to account for it some way, and that's how it would happen through the budget process.
Yep, and my suggestion was it would be one way to get through, this year, because our 2022 budget obviously has been set, and
Yep.
so.
Like I
So
say, I don't know where you have much choice anyhow. I mean,
Right.
your options are the two, and one's better than the other.
It is.
And it
right.
allows you a little growth yet.
So a comment I have is, this board has pledged that we're in support of police and the sheriff's departments. And if you read about what's happening in other places in our country where they're just letting people be arrested and then get out on the same day, I consider it fortunate that we live in an area where law enforcement is trying to make
Enforce
sure-
the
yeah,
laws?
enforce the laws. And, it
I would
costs
agree,
money, and,
yeah.
you know, mental health issues, that's a whole nother ballgame, and right now, one of the solutions is jail time.
And while you're seeing, you know, a direct cost to the taxpayer here, the, you know, indirect cost of letting people out and the damage done to society are probably a heck of a lot worse.
Exactly. Some people, you know, with low bail or just releasing them, some people, that's fine. And there's basically no threat to the public safety, but these people are here for a reason. And the public safety aspect and the traffic enforcement and the, you know, arresting people on warrants and stuff, some people need to be in jail. That's the simple fact of it. And it's about accountability, and the judges, when they look at their criminal history, they look at their current charges, they're establishing, you know, what the bail should be. A lot of these people are on probation, so they're getting that revoked and they're being held. It's accountability. So I agree, and unfortunately, law enforcement and, you know, public safety as a whole, we don't really get a lot of funded, you know, we're not funded from the feds, you know, as much as some other agencies are. So unfortunately, public safety, there is a cost to that, absolutely.
So Corey, what's the cost of housing a inmate, daily cost?
Like our own?
Yeah, like our own, we won't,
Well, it depends how you look at it. You have, you know, if you factor in, you know, a little bit from what the building costs were, and all of that, you have roughly, you know what it is, Brent?
I think it's,
might be easier just to go, if someone outside comes in, what's
I
the
think
cost?
it's
We
right around
charge,
50.
I think we charge $60 a day.
60.
That's the Department of Corrections rate, and that's kind of been the standard, right now is what the rate is if you have to house out, or if we take inmates in, it's $60 a day.
So, in reality, it's double that, I mean, because we got,
Totally double that, yes.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think it's even over,
300 probably?
no, it's about 140 or 50, I believe, is what it is, when you factor in building costs and staffing costs and all that. The DOC actually every year kicks out what our average daily rate is, what it costs to keep our inmates. And I believe last year, because we actually billed some of this out on the line 3 reimbursement, and it was, I want to say it was well over $100 a day. It was.
No, with these four, should it happen that way, we're not looking at being a large correctional facility in the area, are we?
Well, we're a larger one, we are,
Right.
but
We're not looking at
I'm not
any-
trying to be the biggest.
Okay, that's all I wanted to hear.
No, you got Becker County with their
Yeah.
new jail. Beltrami still has a sizable jail, even though part of it, I believe, is closed off. You know, Cass is kind of a 2-county jail, because they have theirs, and then they house out.
Growing,
And
yeah.
obviously, we're a lot bigger than Clearwater and Wadena, but,
Well, that's another issue, is finding somebody that would take our inmates, because they're either all full or short-staffed, so they won't take our inmates when we need to hose them out. So it could
Good point.
potentially be driving them down to the cities to like some of the bigger jails down there to house them.
when we, hit-
Which are
yes.
more costs.
When we hit 87 for the first time here a week or two ago, our jail administrator started checking to see who could take in. He found one county, and I want to say it was maybe Wright County, I can't
Yeah,
remember,
it was.
that was willing to take 9. Nobody else had any room. That's a tough situation to be in.
I spoke to a commissioner, Rosa County, and they had raised their levy significantly to capture some tax capacity, but well over half of that has been used in their jail, in staffing for their jail.
Yep.
So the concern is, are you gonna be able to find the staff? And then number 2, do you have any idea what's driving this trend? Because, I mean, we're obviously better off with 0 people in our jail. That's not gonna happen, but, you know, you don't want a trend where it's constantly full, because then we got a crime problem.
Right. Right.
What's driving it?
So I read an article this morning, currently, 1 out of 8 males between the ages of 26 and 54 are contentedly unemployed, and they spend their days on social media and playing video games. And so I'm suspecting part of our problem is 1 out of 8 of those people being unemployed.
No purpose.
Yeah, no, they don't have a purpose.
I have no doubt about that.
It's chemicals.
Yep,
It's driving it.
We are,
chemical abuse.
with 116 beds, the kind of the golden ratio is that you can be up to 80% full at any given time to have the swap space to maintain safety for the prisoners and the staff, which is 91.2 or 92.3 or something like that. So that's correct, and you don't really have to put pen to pencil to understand that if that's what our average daily population is, we're much better housing them here in our facility from a cost standpoint. The transportation cost could easily add 50 or 70% to the daily cost for housing prisoners outside of the county. The challenge is, if our average daily population grows to be 87, we don't have a whole lot of wiggle room past that point. So we're still going to have to evaluate options of what to do. You can have more than 80% in the jail if you can meet all the other parameters relative to where you can double occupy and where you can't double occupy. You just can't really.
Yeah, if
It
everything's
becomes
perfect,
if
yes.
everything worked out, you could have way more than 92. But things don't ever work out that way. So that's why they scale it to assume that the number is 80%.
As far as being able to hire staff, it's been a lot easier getting good quality applicants for full-time positions than it has been for part-time positions. So I think we can, get a decent pool.
So that begs one more question for me then. I know you mentioned several were DUI type people in there. If we had drug court, would that have a significant impact on the amount of people that we have in the jail?
It might, yeah, I don't see, why not. Drug court or DUI court, I think focuses more on maybe your first-time offenders, maybe second-time offenders. There's a lot of people, like with felony level DUIs, probably are not gonna be subject to it. So the type of people that we are holding are a lot of the felony level and probation violation people. So I don't know. I have to think that it would make some difference. It would have to. I don't know that it would clean our jail out, though.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you would have prevented some of those people from getting to felony level. And if this is a trend that's gonna continue, we have to do something different.
Yeah.
And that's one thing this county hasn't done, that other counties have had success with, that, has been brought up multiple times, God bless Mark
I'll do
Mark
it.
brought it up all the time, Bloomquist, and had funding for it several times, and we just can't get it done. And I think it would help significantly.
But that's not on us, Dave, or is our sheriff, you know what I mean?
I understand.
That's higher.
But they're interconnected.
Yep. It is. It needed buy-in from the court, and I don't know that maybe we would be there now. I know historically, it just didn't go through from the higher-ups, yes.
So I will say Action Park Rapids is being revived, and that will probably be one of the things that comes out of that, to try for that again. So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Dave.
The other reason I bring that up, because I try to think ahead about these things, and we could be back here a year or two later where we're completely full and no room for more, and we're transporting 10 to 20 all over the place because we didn't do something about it.
True.
At this point, I don't know that we would need another motion, because if we're staffed to capacity in the jail, administratively, if they have to start putting people someplace else, they already have the authority to do that. So this is really just to bring our complement and dispatcher jailers to the point where we can have an average daily population that meets our capacity.
Ms. Gina?
Also, as, we do in any position, if we would happen to have a vacancy in a full-time position, we always review that and we say, do we need at this point in time to fill this position? So we will always, if there's a vacancy, take a look at that and say, is there the need at this time? So that's a process that will be done as well.
So really, Corey, our 4 could be 8 part-time. I mean, are you running
No,
that?
I'm asking for 4 additional full-time people. I can't get enough part-time people. Yeah. It's next to impossible to get hardly any applicants, much less quality applicants. But full-time applicants, we've been able to get them.
Okay. And out of the 80, what was our current population? It was 87. How many of them are ours versus out of county?
We're not taking in any out of county, but we do have a handful of DOC ones because of the agreements we have in place. The DOC is on our STS crew, so they're allowing that to still function. So there is a handful of DOC, but not very many.
Thank you, Corey. And thank you,
So,
Brent.
what are counties doing if they can't find places to house?
Letting them out.
Yeah, you just let them out then?
They must.
What else
Yeah.
do you do?
They must.
Alrighty, call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
All right, thank you much.
Okay, Dan.
That's why this ordinance.
Okay, administrator.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'm bringing this for you for Rob because he and I have had several conversations about it and we've been talking about it, budgeted for it. This is to move forward with a contract for Office 365 for the county, and that would take us off our on-premise server. It would alleviate the licenses and et cetera. It would transition us from owning a license to leasing a license on an annual basis, which is kind of the way that Microsoft is working. I appreciate the thing that we had budgeted, I think, $50,000 annually to do this. And if you look at the quote, I think he's showing about half of that. But our initial assumption is that we're gonna bring almost everybody in on the E1 level, which means that their use of Office applications would be cloud-based rather than local-based. And the E3 level allows people to download the programs to their hard drive, and actually five instances of devices where they can download the programs. And the only real benefit to working locally versus in the cloud is when you get to working with the higher functions of Excel and PowerPoint, like pivot tables and other functions like that don't work with Excel in the cloud. For most people, they do. And for everybody would have access to Outlook, email and calendar and SharePoint and OneDrive and the Microsoft Teams, which is the big piece that ties all this together in collaboration. So we've talked through this a couple of times. We have the ability to modify an E1 to an E3 license if we determine need. I appreciate that Rob found this way to go for the implementation of this, and then we can ramp people up as we need to throughout the course of the year as we determine that they have those needs. So instead of, originally I would have shown 50-50 on the 280 contracts, being E1 versus E3. We're just gonna start with a significant number of E1s and then migrate to E3 as we need to. And even if that happens, we're still gonna be under that budgeted amount that we had in there. The reason that we're bringing this now, and a lot of things came up all of a sudden, our first and third meeting dates, when the first is the first, create a significant problem for us a couple of times of the year, and this is one of them related to that, having things to be in by the end of February. We've ran into this, I think, in June too, when our meetings were really early and we needed to close things up before the end of the state fiscal year. So the third Tuesday of the month sometimes presents difficulties instead of it being the fourth Tuesday of the month, which is common for many counties. So, but the value of this is if we sign this 3-year plan, we would avoid what is presumed to be about a 15% increase in Microsoft pricing effective March 1st. And if we do it at the lower level of the number of E1s versus E3s, I think we're going to still be locked into that. There was another way to purchase this where it's month to month, and I think it's about 10 or 15% more per contract, but as Rob and I were discussing, this is not a decision we're gonna say, we're gonna try this for 6 months and then maybe we'll go back. It's just, you can't do that. You make the determination that we're gonna go the way that commerce is going and systems are going, to just work with the office. You don't have an option. We don't have an option to not have licensing for Microsoft.
Well, it kind of makes sense if we were gonna go towards this, and then, it's a budgeted item, plus if we could save 15% by acting now.
That will reduce the impact of the budget in '23 and '24, and then at that point in time, we'll have numbers relative to subsequent years. And related to the implementation, there's gonna be some cost associated, because I've told Rob, I said, whatever it looks like, whatever your capacity is, and their new IT technician started yesterday, so that's good. I said, but you do contract for some help related to the migration from the on-premise server to the cloud-based server. And we haven't scoped what that would be yet, but that's well within the budget of professional service that he has available, and we'd come and have that number approved later, but he has money for that. We won't be using part of what we budgeted for the actual licensing here, because he's got money for professional services budgeted.
I guess if someone would like to make a motion? I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second that.
I'll go with Tom.
Okay.
I couldn't tell
Will
either.
said it.
It's close. Oh, well, David's also.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear him.
I didn't hear Dave either.
That's unusual.
Speak up.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Is there anything else, Jeff?
I don't have anything else. As you know, in the background, we're working on the brokerage agreement and the authority to sell heritage. Had that conversation with MMCDC staff last year, got a lot of background documentation. As I was explaining earlier, MMCDC worked with us to build up the platform to set the new market tax credits on, and then we dismantled the new market tax credits. But it's gonna be up to us to dismantle the platform that they built for the new market tax credits to set on top of. And I'm still confident that we're gonna be able to do that. It's just, I got all that background work to the attorneys, and we'll be following up with them this week.
And I guess we'll move on to committee reports. Who would like to start? Dave?
I can. We had a Public Safety and Transportation Committee meeting just recently, just kind of went over the 5-year road plan, had some discussion on the armor radios that will be part of a future capital improvement of some type, either through ARP funds or through some other planning. Also discussed the key card access and security stuff at the Highway and Survey Department. Had some discussion on an easement policy we're working on to see if we make any changes with that. Also discussed motorized vehicle use on county forest trails. And also talked a bit about that purchasing of 50 acres from the Conservation Fund east of Emmaville, or west of Emmaville. A little bit more on that. And that pretty much covered public safety, unless I missed something, Jeff. We talked a little bit about the ATV issue too, and how we might proceed forward with that. So that was that. And then I had a discussion last night with Senator Utke, who's now the chair of Health and Human Services in Minnesota. And he was filling me in a little bit on the county-based purchasing issue, which we know by state statute in Minnesota allows counties to do county-based purchasing. But it sounds like that the pushback is coming from the federal government and Medicare and Medicaid funding. So the question's gonna be what trumps what? Of course, funding always, whoever's paying the bill seems to have the controls. So that's the concern, is whether the federal government which HHS is kind of following with its decision, is going to be the ruling factor, or if our state statute's gonna be the ruling factor. So it's probably a good thing we went out for a benefit study.
So there's one other state in the United States where county-based purchasing is legal that's working very well, and that's the state of California. And just a brief comment about Heritage. So we voted at our last Prime West meeting that Jim would be able to work with the long-term care facilities where they service people. And that we allocated 1.5 million to help them. So if this would be just one example where county-based purchasing uses their income, the net income that they get, to then reinvest back into the communities. If this was a private insurance company or the state, they wouldn't be doing stuff like this. And so this is just one example of why we really need to fight for county-based purchasing, because it does try to do the best thing locally.
And that's all I got.
Alrighty. And Shar, I guess if you have anything?
Yeah, I do. So, let's see, we had the benefit committee meeting on the 9th. I think all of you got a copy of the survey results, and if you look through them, a lot of people are really frustrated. I did bring up that point because one of the points I brought up was people were wondering how come the county hadn't done anything, for the last few years. I just reminded people that we had signed a 5-year contract. I do think it's great that we're going out and looking at other options to see. If nothing else, if we can't find anything, or if we find everything is comparable to what we already have, that's a decision. But that's important for the employees to see what the options are, and maybe it's not cheaper anywhere else, I don't know. But the employees are asking us to do something as far as an increase, and so I'm sure that'll be with negotiations.
So Shar, I would have a question on that, and I don't know if you know the answer or not, but, and whether you were here when initially we went with Prime West, but
I was here. Oh, Prime West or Prime Health?
well, both.
Okay,
Generally, would you say that it's lived up to the expectations?
well, the big expectation was to avoid large increases, yearly increases. Yes, it's lived up to that, because if you look at it across who Prime Health has served, the increase is less than 2% overall, I believe, for most counties. I'm not educated enough to know. Matt from Prime Health says that they're in the ballpark where it comes with how much it costs for the premiums plus the high deductibles.
Yeah.
I have no clue, because this is the only insurance I have.
Yeah,
I know
that's my
people in the
problem, too.
private sector have different options, but the gentleman that was here, I can't remember his name, said that part of the problem is county, federal, state, county employees, there's different regulations than there is in the private sector. So I don't know how all this all plays in.
And I'm in the same boat you are. I'm not a real good judge of it, because, it's the first time I've had any insurance offered from,
Yeah.
other than myself.
And for me, my other employer, when I was on their coverage, I would say it was maybe slightly better as far as lower deductible and stuff like that. But then the costs were, out of my pocket, were way more.
Yeah.
Way more.
See, so all of this study will be great for not only for information, but then the employees to see, do we really have it that bad? Or, plus, we can only offer so much, because when you look at the cost, I was going through the bills today, it's $229,200 some dollars that we send to Prime Health every month for the coverage that we have. And so, who's paying the bills here? The taxpayers. And so how much can we expect the taxpayers to cover? It's a hard balancing act, so we'll have to make some decisions
And
this year.
people tend to compare what they might have had with a previous employer 5 or 10 years ago with what they have now. Well, that's not entirely fair. Things have
Obamacare
changed
just
drastically,
changed everything.
So you really can't do that.
Yeah.
You have to take a current snapshot of the market to know.
Yeah,
And that's, looking now is gonna at least answer some questions.
Yep. Yep,
I like to refer to it as the Unaffordable Care Act.
And I have a Prime Health meeting coming up on the 24th of February. It'll be interesting to see the discussion there. I went to Action Park Rapids on the 10th. I'm actually asking you as a board to allow me to be on that as a committee. They're reviving it. It meets every quarter. I had a chance to share about Heritage and encourage people to apply there. Some of the things I found out, currently legislatively, they're looking at rental credits for people if they're applying for a house loan, they can get rental references from the last 2 years, which would help people to say, yeah, I was a good renter. So I found that out from somebody. Once again, the community-wide calendar came up. The Panther Tracks is being totally redone. It's going to be ushered out again, but they're moving from what the freshmen were getting now to 7th and 8th grade. And so the freshman through the senior will be able to just take off the road running. And they're looking for, when they have interest, they're looking for internships or places where kids can work during the school. I actually, after this meeting, I was there, and Sheila Walsh from the school texted me yesterday and said, I have a person who is not going to graduate but wants to get trained and work at Heritage. How do I go about this? And so what I like about it, it's people from all over that are involved in all different things in the county coming together and having conversation. One other thing, there was a pastor there from First Baptist Church, and I apologize, I don't remember his name, but he's working with a pastor in Perham called Love Incorporated, and they're working on a homeless shelter. And so he didn't elaborate where they're interested in putting that or anything, but, so that was something new. So I would ask the board to approve that as a standing committee. Then, let's see, I had a Magic meeting yesterday, Magic Board. There's almost 2 job openings for every person unemployed in the United States currently at this time. And that was taking the unemployment rate, which is currently 3.9%. So when they were done presenting, I talked to them about the article or the podcast I listened to where unemployment is really 25% and inflation is close to 15%. I was really surprised yesterday because they're still predicting inflation's going to go away in the near future, and I have a hard time agreeing with that. But the feds are meeting 7 more times this year, and they're guessing that the interest rate will be up to 2% by the end of the year. Magic has offered short-term at 38 days now because that's the best way when currently the basis points are still so low that people can try make any money. They have their 30-day term is at 0.35 basis points. They have a new dashboard coming out, which Kay will be using. It's called Connect. And the current, there's a lot of fields you have to go through. The new one, Kay will be able to bring it up. She'll be able to see what our investment or our balance is on the first page, where we've invested, what the interest rates are. It'll be very user-friendly. That was it for Prime, or for the Magic Fund. And then the only other thing is I just have a comment. I'm not asking the board to take any action, but I just want you to be aware of what happened with this. So Heritage Living Campus, 2.4 million in the red. And so if you read through this article, at the end of the article, this was in Saturday's paper, it does say that Delahan pointed out if the problem persists, the county could potentially be on the hook for 2 million in losses. And I agree with that statement. But the headline was really deceiving. And so after I read this, I actually emailed Kurt and I just said, this is not what the board said. I'd like to have a conversation. We talked yesterday. And so Kurt just shared with me, here's what's happened in his world since this came out. He said staff asked if they should quit because Heritage will not be open. He started getting phone calls Sunday from the public. Paper came out Saturday. Yesterday, he met with 3 residents who get the paper, and they were worried Heritage was closing. They didn't know where they were going to live. And then Leading Edge, which is the umbrella over every long-term care facility in the state of Minnesota, reached out to Katie on Monday. I don't even know how they saw this article, but asking Katie to explain. And so I just want the public, if anybody's listening, and the board to be aware of, it matters how words are put. So with that, that's my report.
Okay, thank you.
I wonder, would it be helpful to reach out to Kurt and see if he's having another staff meeting over there and just reiterate where our position is?
And he would have been here today, but he's at the Prime West meeting right as we speak,
Yeah.
trying to get part of the $1.5 million.
The unfortunate part about this stuff is you can't control what
No,
other people write.
no, but there's consequences.
There are, you know, and unfortunately, sometimes pushing back directly doesn't help the problem.
Right, yep.
It just exasperates it.
Oh, I'm part of the Action Park Rapids, actually, speaking of heritage. There was a lady there that's involved in the Lions, and I'm gonna go give an update on Heritage. She used to work at Heritage. She said she's close to 80. She'll do whatever she can to try people to get to work there, and she asked me to come and update the Lions Club.
Good.
So,
And the other side of that is, the problem exists.
it does exist, yes.
It's real. And to not discuss it or say it exists is a disservice too. So there's a balancing act there. People need to the residents need to understand exactly what the lay of the land is. But they also need to understand that we are doing everything we can to do and move this process along in the right way that's
Correct.
beneficial to the community, to the residents, and to the taxpayers.
Yep.
Jeff, as far as the adding Action Park Rapids to the committee list, does there need to be a motion made for something like that?
Yeah, if the board would make a motion to add that to the list, then we will, and
Okay.
basically what you're saying is you want Commissioner Christensen to be there representing the board and be able to collect per diems and mileage and expenses for it.
Would you like to make that motion?
I would, yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Second that.
Thank you, Dave. Any further discussion?
I will just say that they currently meet on the first Thursday, and except they met on the second Thursday this time, so I could attend. Because when I used to meet, then I had to quit going because of Prime West, and I mentioned that at the end of the meeting. And they still wanted a county representative there. They're gonna change their meeting date to the second Thursday. So
Good.
the public does want the county to be represented.
Okay. And then, Tom, do you have any committee reports?
You gotta
Well, I
vote.
think we have to
Oh,
vote on this
excuse me.
one.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Alrighty, motion carried. Now, Tom, do you have any committee reports?
Yeah, I did attend the SWCD meeting last week by Zoom. They're still meeting by Zoom. And one thing that was brought up was that the Crow Wing watershed planning meetings are gonna start in March. And I've been given an invitation to attend to it, and this is another committee item right here, because I looked in the committee list and the Crow Wing watershed is not listed on there, so maybe that one needs to be on there to be able to get per diem and mileage.
I do have a person too that would be very interested in being on that advisory committee when the time comes.
Okay.
So, that actually lives on Lake Beltane, is active in the Lake Association and the water issues.
I'm thinking as far as making it out on the committee list, maybe we have to wait till it's actually formed.
Well, they sent out a survey to see who wants to, what date to have a meeting, and
Okay.
it could be potentially March 1st or March 4th.
Okay.
So that's gonna be
I,
coming up.
don't you think it would be okay to approve, because Tom would be involved initially, and we're gonna approve it anyway?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's the direction
Mhm.
we've all kind of indicated, so.
He's attending at this point because of the SWCD, correct? We're already attending and participating in the development of this because of some of the other committees that we have. So I don't think it matters if you vote to add it today or if you vote to add it after they actually vote to approve it. Either way is going to be the same. But for up to this point, the discussion and the carrying of the action related to creating that one watershed, plan has been through one of the other things that we already have on our
Okay,
list.
so I can just put SWCD for now?
Yes, you
Okay.
can. Yep.
Okay, good.
That's it?
Yeah, I missed the benefits committee meeting last week, Char was there.
Yeah, and I had a couple of meetings, Mississippi Headwaters Board mainly, we went over the next budget, which would start in July for the end of 2022 and 2023. A couple other meetings like that, and the only other thing was an RMC meeting on Monday the 10th, which Shar and David had also participated in, which I appreciated your guys' attendance. I know we talked a lot about it during the work session because it was talking about nursing homes and all that kind of stuff. And you guys had more knowledge on the nursing home stuff than I did, so I appreciated you guys being there. And then also, I got that Dan seemed like he was asking for somebody to make a motion to make this a priority for RMC, and which I then took that hint, and we've got that now on the priority list for RMC, which it sounded like Shar said at the last meeting, at the work session, those counties that don't have county-owned nursing homes are still gonna have issues with nursing homes. So it was good to be able to bring that forward and try to tackle this problem, because I'm sure, not only in the state, I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the whole United States.
Yeah, several commissioners, commented on it for the first time since we've been talking about it for over a year, because it's now hitting their private assisted
Yes.
living facilities and having an effect on and they're worried about, the damage being done to the privately owned facilities and the employment picture.
Do you remember what county it was that a private one came to them and they allocated some ARPA funds to give to the private facility to remain open? Do you remember which county that was?
Well, I know Monoman commented a lot, and then Douglas County commented about how they use the ARP fund
Yep, for
with the
schooling,
VOTEC
yeah,
for schooling and scholarships. But there were a couple others mixed in there too. But it's a real problem.
And it's not only, I think it stems from the employment problem. Where you commented how there's twice as many job openings as people looking for work. And how we solve that problem, what's creating the problem and how do we solve it? It touches, even the business, the industry that I'm in. There's one VOTEC or technical college in the state of Minnesota that's graduating auto body techs. And if you think about all the body shops in the state of Minnesota, and there's only one tech that's dealing with it, that's shortages all over.
It took 2 years to create the problem. How long do you think it's gonna take to fix?
Yeah.
Usually takes longer to fix
How
than
do
it
you
does to
take
run.
away funding from people that are willing just to stay home?
Mhm.
I just got an email from Kurt, I'd like to read just portions of it, just got off the information call with Prime West. Jim Preservilla, he's CEO, announced Prime West Board approved the allocation 1.5 million. Following discussion, they determined they will use 450,000 of it to provide SNFs in their interim Medicare add-on payment to their daily rates to uncover increased costs. What that translates to is $22 per day per Medicaid resident. And then they still have $1 million that they're trying to figure out how they're gonna get that out.
So is that $22 per
Per
day
person.
additional per
Yes.
resident?
Yes. Yeah, so it's something,
Mm-hmm.
No,
it's at 6,000.
yeah.
Well, if there's nothing else, meetings to note? I don't know if there's any. Of course, our next board meeting won't be till March 1st. So we'll have that same issue next month where our second board meeting will be on the 15th of March.
We will, but we won't because I think the quarterly deadlines will have passed, so.
You don't see this as something we should consider instead of the first and the third?
Anecdotally, I want to ask some other people about some scheduling issues related to that, because when it's been the second, third, and fourth, The only time you run into conflicts is with Thanksgiving and Christmas, but every year, Thanksgiving and Christmas, you run into it. When you go second, third, and fourth, you avoid the conflict with AMC in December, but you create the conflict with Christmas. So there's a trade-off either way. I wouldn't recommend changing anything.
Okay.
In June, we had that special meeting the end of the month because we had to move something. And if push comes to shove and somebody says, no, you have to, we need our signature by February 28th on that contract, I'll let you know, and if we have to call a special meeting to make one vote, we will. It's related to the funding for our child protective services, and just because the final document has to be executed by March 28th, I'm sure we're gonna be fine with that one day lag.
I guess that works out where March 1st is a Tuesday.
Is a Tuesday, so yeah, it's,
Well, if there's
Just
nothing
doing the
else.
math on that $22 a day, that's $22 a day times roughly 30 residents, times 30 days, it's just shy of 20 grand a month. That helps. I pay for a staff person,
Yeah, because it's 240,000 a year then.
almost, yeah.
If there's nothing else, if I could get a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.